Welcome back. Today, I'd like to give you two more strategies to improve your sleep, and they include having a caffeine curfew and being cool at night. So let's talk about those. So having a caffeine curfew and stop taking it after 2 p.m. if you value your deep sleep. So what this means is caffeine is great and it's not terrible, and it's so difficult to remove caffeine completely as it's an addictive, it's like a drug, and it's very addictive and it just tastes so good. And caffeine is not terrible for you. It does have antioxidants, but it's also a powerful nervous system stimulant, and this means that it can help increase cortisol production in the morning when you want it to be elevated, and that can help regulate circadian rhythm. Now, the Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine published a study, and Christopher Drake notes that drinking a big cup of coffee after driving home from work can negatively affect your sleep, just as if someone was consuming it before bed. So, what the study in the Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine showed is that it doesn't matter if you consume it right before bed, 3 hours before bed, or 6 hours before bed. All of these cases made sleep worse. And that's because caffeine has a half-life of 5 to 8 hours, so it takes so long for it to be completely cleared from your system. And even having it 6 hours before bed can cause sleep problems. Now, I understand, and I have my green tea sometimes later in the day too. And green tea is interesting because green tea also has L-theanine, which actually helps relax you and makes you more alert. It's good for your parasympathetic nervous system, and it's good for L-theanine actually helps relax you to sleep, but green tea also has a bit of caffeine. So it's best to completely avoid caffeine before 2 p.m. to give enough time to completely clear it away from your system. But since I have it sometimes, it's okay because green tea has very, very like a fraction of the caffeine that something like coffee has, for example. But the idea is to not consume caffeine even in the evening hours, as it can mess up with your sleep. Now, participants in the study literally lost 1 hour of sleep, and although they thought that their sleep was okay, they had reduced REM sleep, which is the high quality sleep. So that's what caffeine does. It may not affect your ability to fall asleep, but it will give you crappy sleep if you have it before bed. And regardless if it's right before, 3 hours, or even 6 hours, same effect because it's half-life. So ideally before 2 p.m. And of course, if you have it before bed, it can cause a vicious cycle because when you have caffeine close to bed, it's gonna give you crappy sleep, which makes you tired the next day, and so you want more caffeine, and so you're gonna take more and more of it, and you're gonna become eventually addicted because your sensitivity to it will decrease, and you're gonna have more and more of it. So definitely having it late at night, it can mess with your sleep, and then you're gonna want more of it. Is not a good idea. So. What caffeine does is it works by binding to adenosine receptors, and adenosine helps build up throughout the day and increases something called your sleep drive. And the more activity you do in the day, the more adenosine you build up. So the more active you are during the day, the more sleepy you feel during the night. And caffeine actually prevents adenosine from working because it binds to its receptors. It literally mimics adenosine. The molecule caffeine is super similar to adenosine, so it binds to the adenosine receptors instead of adenosine, and that prevents adenosine from doing its job, which is making you sleepy. So you feel more alert before bed if you have caffeine too close to bedtime. Also, it's best to not stop taking it cold turkey because caffeine causes vasoconstriction. Actually, it increases your blood pressure temporarily by vasoconstricting your blood vessels, and when you stop taking it, you get this massive sudden vasodilating effect, and that can lead to things like headaches, head and neck pain, not pretty, migraines, etc. So you want to gradually quit caffeine and have a plan to prevent this downregulation of caffeine's response over time. So, because if you take caffeine every day, eventually you're going to need more and more of it because you're going to have this down regulatory effect. And caffeine also reduces your sensitivity to adenosine, which makes you sleepy at night. So because of both of those reasons, because you don't want to make yourself be non-sensitive to it, and also because you don't want to downregulate adenosine receptors, which are making you sleepy, the best is to actually maybe not have caffeine every day, but to kind of have it, some days. You want to vary it, have it intermittently. So some options are going 2 days on and 3 days off, so then it can be fully cleared from your system, or go 2 months on and 1 month off. But don't use over 200 mg, which is more than 1 or 2 cups, because high amounts can lead to withdrawal symptoms when you stop taking it. So definitely doing it in moderation is a good idea. And using it as a boost when it's needed is also a good idea, such as before a big event, before a big project. That's another option. You can use it as a boost. So you can go 2 days on, 3 days off, 2 months on, 1 month off, or using it as a boost whenever you need to. So that's caffeine, but try to stop taking it before 2 p.m. and having it in the morning. And also, if you can kind of if you can maybe have it not every single day, but for example maybe 3 days of a week you can have caffeine, and then the other days you can have green tea, for example, or as we mentioned, 2 days on and 3 days off. It doesn't have to be completely off, but maybe something milder which has less caffeine, for example. Now the other tip, which is tip number 5, is to be cool and keep temperature around 60 to 68 Fahrenheit, which is what studies show to be the optimal temperature for sleep. A bit on the cold side, 60 to 68. Now, research at the University of Pittsburgh showed that insomniacs who are wearing cooling caps, so insomniacs, people who have difficulty sleeping, they don't have any other diagnosis but just can't fall asleep, and those insomniacs who are wearing cooling caps to keep their temperature lower actually took about 13 minutes to fall asleep, which is even faster than healthy people, which take around 16 minutes to fall asleep. Also, they ended sleeping for 89% of the time in bed, which is exactly the amount of time healthy individuals sleep for. So their sleep quantity and how fast they fell asleep, and their sleep efficiency, which is a measure of how much time you're actually sleeping versus how much time you're in bed, was pretty much matching healthy individuals by just simply reducing the temperature. So even insomniacs, by reducing the temperature, were able to have good quality sleep and were able to fall asleep much faster. Now, your hypothalamus is part of the hypothalamic pituitary axis, or the HPA axis, and perceived threats can actually activate the HPA system, and this worry or stress can actually raise core temperature, and this can affect sleep too. So when you're stressed, what you're doing is you're activating your sympathetic nervous system, and you want the exact opposite. You want your parasympathetic nervous system to be activated before sleep, and so stress definitely makes it harder to fall asleep as well. And one of the ways by activating your sympathetic nervous system, and the other way is by increasing your core body temperature. So this again shows how stress relates to your body temperature and how that impacts sleep. So make sure to keep stress levels low to not raise your body temperature that way as well. A nice thing you guys can do is take a warm bath 1 to 1.5 hours before sleep, as this can help the core body temperature increase when you take the bath, and then subsequently drop around the time you go for sleep. And the trick is to not take it right before sleep, but 60 to 90 minutes before that, because if you take it right before sleep, what's gonna happen is you're not going to give it enough time for the temperature to drop, and so the bath will actually increase the temperature, and you're not going to have enough time for it to go down. And so I like doing a warm bath with magnesium Epsom salt, and of 2 cups of Epsom salt and half a cup of baking soda and 10 drops of lavender, which is amazing. It's a warm bath, it's very relaxing, it activates your parasympathetic nervous system, but you definitely don't want it right before bed, because you need to give enough time to drop your temperature, right? And so taking it around an hour to an hour and a half before bed is just a sweet spot. The other thing I recommend is wearing socks if you're cold-blooded and you have cold extremities, because poor circulation can actually affect sleep, because your extremities, your hands and your feet, they're going to feel too cold, and that can make your sleep worse. That may cause you to fall asleep and longer, and so it's best to wear socks if you're cold-blooded. If you're warm-blooded, then you may not have to, but if you're cold-blooded, it's best to wear socks before bed so that you can fall asleep faster, because if your extremities are cold, this may interfere with your ability to fall asleep quickly. So again, the 2 tips: stop having caffeine before 2 p.m. You can definitely have it in the morning intermittently. In fact, I'm a fan of caffeine. Antioxidants maintains that cortisol level in the morning and your circadian rhythm, which is exactly what you want. but just to prevent the adenosine downregulation, right, of the adenosine receptors, have it in the morning some days, and the other days maybe switch to green tea or decaffeinated coffee. Definitely a good idea. Definitely don't have caffeine before bed. And then the second tip was to keep your temperature cool at around 60 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Maybe open a window, use a fan, or turn down your thermostat. And if you like, you can also help with that by taking a warm bath an hour to an hour and a half before bed. And definitely avoid stress, because stress can raise your core body temperature and make it more difficult to fall asleep.